Picture this, because, I mean, I guarantee you have been in this exact situation. You are staring at your phone. You've just, like, typed out a text message to someone you're really interested in, but you haven't hit send yet.
Oh, yeah, the hesitation.
Right. Instead, you're backspacing. You're tweaking the phrasing. You're trying to craft the absolute perfect, most logical, polite response.
You're trying to prove you're unbothered.
Exactly. You want to prove that you are successful, funny, entirely unbothered, and totally chill. So you finally hit send, completely confident you've nailed the tone, only to get, like, a lukewarm one-word response.
Or worse, right? The connection just slowly fizzles out entirely over the next few days.
Yeah, the slow fade.
It is such an incredibly common and honestly incredibly frustrating cycle. You sit there feeling like you did absolutely everything right on paper.
Yeah, you check the boxes.
You checked all the boxes of being a good conversationalist, yet the spark just isn't there, and you have, like, no idea why.
And that familiar, agonizing feeling is exactly what we are getting into in today's deep dive. We are looking at a really compelling breakdown from a source called Intimacy Couple Psychology.
It's a great piece.
It really is. So our mission today is to understand the actual psychological mechanics of why standard, polite, perfectly crafted conversations are, well, almost entirely forgettable to the human brain.
They just don't stick.
Right. And more importantly, we're going to explore how a very specific framework of grounded communication actually bypasses all of the brain's natural filters to create a lasting magnetic attraction.
Because the foundational premise we really have to establish right out of the gate here is that attraction is simply not a logical checklist.
No, not at all.
You can be the funniest person in the room, you can have a wildly successful career, you can be perfectly polite and impeccably dressed. But if you are only speaking to a person's analytical brain...
The prefrontal cortex, right?
Yeah, exactly, the prefrontal cortex, which handles logic and reasoning. If you only speak to that, you are never, ever going to spark desire. Logic does not create attraction. Attraction lives somewhere else entirely.
And reading through these sources, that takes us right into the architecture of the brain. You read this and realize, wow, we're completely missing the target when we talk to someone we like because we're aiming at the wrong part of their mind entirely.
We really are. The source explains that attraction actually lives deep in the limbic system.
Okay, the limbic system.
Yeah, that is the primitive, highly reactive seat of emotion and memory in the human brain. It operates completely subconsciously.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't care about your resume.
Right, it doesn't care what college you went to.
Exactly. But most people, when they interact with someone they are drawn to, they get nervous. And because they are nervous, they play it entirely safe. They stay within the rigid boundaries of polite, predictable, logical conversation.
So they ask things like, how are you? Or, hey, what's up? Or, how was your weekend?
Which feels safe.
Totally. When you're nervous, safe is exactly what you want.
It definitely feels safe in the moment. But these conversations completely lack emotional weight. They don't require the limbic system to activate at all.
They don't ask anything of it.
Right. They don't require the other person to actually feel anything.
Yeah.
And here is the critical part to understand about human biology. The brain is, above all else, a relentless efficiency machine.
Oh, yeah.
It consumes a massive amount of energy, so it is literally designed to blur out routine interactions to save calories. It categorizes predictable conversations as background noise.
Just totally tunes them out.
Think about the sheer volume of safe, polite interactions a person has in a single day. The barista at the coffee shop, the coworker in the hallway, the generic texts in their inbox. The brain cannot possibly remember all of that, so it deletes it almost instantly.
It's like your brain has a built-in spam filter.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, if a message looks like a generic promotional email, if it reads like every other polite, hey, how's your Tuesday? Text, it goes straight to the junk folder without a second thought.
Yep.
Your brain just marks it as read and archives it. You don't even register that you saw it.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. The brain just filters it right out because it poses no threat and it offers no distinct reward, so why waste energy processing it?
But wait, hold on. If you're listening to this, you might be having the exact same reaction I did when I first read this part of the source.
What's that?
Well, I was raised to believe that being polite is the entire point of making a good first impression. I mean, we are taught from childhood that courtesy is how you show respect.
Sure. Yeah.
So why on earth is the human brain aggressively filtering out common courtesy like it's a cheap spam email?
It's a really great distinction to make. Being polite is absolutely fine and even necessary for a business transaction or a casual acquaintance. But what's fascinating here is a concept the source calls emotional anchoring.
Emotional anchor.
Right. If your goal is to be unforgettable to someone, courtesy simply isn't enough to trigger the limbic system. You have to paint what they call a psychological landmark.
Okay, a landmark. So something that stands out.
Because the brain is an efficiency machine, it only hits the record button for moments that carry a distinct, sharp emotional charge. It needs a high contrast memory to justify storing the information.
A high contrast memory, meaning it has to stand out drastically from the gray background noise of their day.
Exactly. When you create that emotional anchor by making them feel something real, the other person's unconscious mind will literally replay that exact moment later when they're alone.
Wow.
It separates you from being just another contact in their phone and turns you into a constant, lingering presence in their thoughts.
Right, so if the brain is constantly filtering out safe, polite fluff, how do you actually bypass the spam filter without being, weird or inappropriate? Like, how do you step out the script?
The source points to three specific, highly effective linguistic tools that cut straight through the noise. But the very first one requires confronting a major hidden fear that most people don't even realize is dictating their behavior.
Right, the fear of rejection. Which brings us to the first linguistic tool, the clarity of the phrase, I want.
Yes.
The source argues that most people, and specifically men in the context of this particular psychological breakdown, fail to spark attraction because they are absolutely terrified of rejection.
They're paralyzed by it.
And that deep fear manifests as incredibly wishy-washy, non-committal language. We use words like maybe, possibly, or if you're free, we could.
And the tricky part is, we do this under the guise of being polite.
We think we're being nice.
Exactly. We convince ourselves that saying, maybe we could hang out sometime if you aren't too busy, is being respectful or being considerate of their time.
Yeah.
But psychologically, it does something entirely different and actually quite damaging to attraction. Well, when you use weak, defensive phrases, you are effectively offloading the emotional heavy lifting onto the other person.
Okay, let's unpack this. Emotional heavy lifting. What does that actually look like in the context of a real interaction?
It means you are implicitly asking the other person to lead. Because you are too afraid to clearly state your own intentions and risk a no, you are making them do all the work.
Right.
You're making them decide if the interaction should happen, when it should happen, and what the romantic context of it means. It comes across as hesitant, uncertain, and ultimately deeply needy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
True attraction requires someone who's grounded enough to take responsibility for their own desires. Someone who doesn't need external permission to exist and want what they want. By contrast, saying clearly, I want, establishes what psychologists call healthy polarity.
Healthy polarity. I love that term. Let me put it in a context I think everyone can relate to.
Go for it.
It's the difference between asking someone, hey, do you want to figure out what to do for dinner tonight? Which honestly just feels like an exhausting chore when you're already tired.
Oh, the worst.
Versus saying, I'm making us dinner tonight. One is a burden, the other feels like a total relief. You're letting the other person drop the burden of decision-making.
That is a phenomenal example. It creates a steady, reliable energy. It allows the other person's nervous system to downregulate.
To just relax.
Yeah, they feel a massive sense of relief and security because they realize they don't have to manage your feelings, tiptoe around your ego, or, like you said, figure out the logistics. They can just relax and respond naturally to your lead.
But let me challenge that just a little bit. If someone I barely know texts me and says, I want to take you to dinner this weekend, my alarm bells might actually ring.
Sure.
Doesn't that risk sounding arrogant or pushy, like you dictating terms rather than asking for consent?
That is a really common fear, and the source addresses this distinction carefully. If we connect this to the bigger picture, stating, I want, is not about aggression or control at all. It's about radical honesty and calm confidence.
Okay.
The person who says, I want to take you to dinner, isn't being pushy. They're being decisive. They have a plan, they have a genuine desire, and they are simply inviting the other person to join them in that vision.
They're owning it.
They are standing in their own truth. They aren't trying to artificially minimize their investment, just in case the answer is no. They are saying, this is what I want, I own it, and the choice is entirely yours. That kind of grounded certainty is incredibly magnetic.
I see. It's taking complete ownership of your intent. You aren't like testing the waters with your toe to see what they'll say before you reveal your hand. You're just calmly putting your cards on the table.
Precisely. You are demonstrating clear intent without demanding a specific outcome.
But intent alone isn't enough to create a lasting memory. You could confidently say you want to take someone out, but how do they know it's really about them? Because, I mean, you could say that to anybody. You have to prove you are genuinely paying attention to the specific human being in front of you, which leads to the second tool.
Yes, the simple yet incredibly powerful word, because.
The ultimate antidote to modern dating fluff. The source points out that generic compliments, things like, you're beautiful, or you have a great vibe, or you're so cool, are actually incredibly shallow.
Very shallow.
They completely fail to stick in the brain because they could literally apply to millions of people.
And if you are talking to someone who is highly attractive or very successful, they hear those exact generic phrases so often that they instantly become part of that background noise we talked about earlier.
Yeah, it's just spam.
Their limbic system doesn't even register it. It just bounces right off
Yeah.
the spam filter.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Using the word because is exactly like showing your work in math class.
Oh, I love that. That's a
Wow.
brilliant way to frame it.
Right. Think about it. The compliment itself, like, you're really interesting, is just the final answer. It's fine, but the teacher doesn't care about just the answer because you could have easily guessed it or cheated.
Yep.
The because is you showing the steps. It proves you actually did the work to truly see the person in front of you.
I completely agree. And to build on that math analogy, when you just drop the answer, it naturally breeds skepticism.
Totally.
The other person wonders, do they really mean that? Or is this just a line? The because turns a simple, easily dismissed pleasantry into what the source calls an evidence-based observation.
Evidence-based observation, I like that.
When you provide the logical, specific reason for your attraction, the sentiment suddenly feels earned rather than forced. It bridges the gap between surface-level flattery and the deep emotional core.
So instead of saying, I really enjoy talking to you, which is nice, but let's be honest, totally forgettable by Tuesday morning.
You say, I really enjoy talking to you because you have an incredibly thoughtful way of looking at mundane things, and it makes me pause and think differently.
Wow. Yeah, that hits totally differently. If someone said that to me, I would remember it for weeks.
You would remember it because it satisfies a fundamental human need, the deep evolutionary desire to be understood by our tribe. We all walk around desperately wanting someone to really get us.
Yes.
When you highlight someone's specific resilience in a hard situation, or their unique, dry sense of humor, or the exact way their mind works, you are validating their actual perspective on the world.
And that's rare.
This specific recognition is incredibly rare, especially today in a dating culture dominated by rapid swipes and superficial physical likes. You're proving to them that your interest isn't just a basic biological reaction to their appearance, but a genuine, conscious recognition of who they actually are.
It proves you are actually paying attention. You aren't just reciting lines you saw on the internet.
Exactly.
So we have clear intent with I want, and we have specific evidence with because. But to elevate this from a really great conversation to a true soul-level connection, the focus of your observation has to shift entirely from the surface to the core. And that takes us to the third tool.
The profound depth of the phrase, I appreciate. And to really grasp why this particular phrasing is so magnetic, we have to deeply break down the massive psychological difference between giving a compliment and offering genuine appreciation.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Most people get stuck in what we can call the compliment trap. They focus entirely on the surface, someone's hair, their eyes, the outfit they are wearing. And while those things are nice to hear, they're almost always transactional.
Transactional, meaning I am saying this nice thing to you with the hidden expectation that you will smile at me or validate me or give me something in return. I'm paying a compliment to buy your affection.
Exactly. You give a compliment to elicit a reaction. It's an exchange. Appreciation, however, is entirely different.
How so?
It acknowledges hidden inner qualities, character traits, and core values. It isn't about what a person looks like. It's about how they move through the world. When you say, I appreciate how thoughtful you are with the people around you, you are signaling that you aren't just a consumer of their physical beauty or their time.
Right.
The source uses a really beautiful poetic phrase for this. It signals that you are a witness to their soul.
A witness to their soul. That is a heavy concept, but it makes so much sense biologically. When you feel witness like that, it creates profound emotional safety.
It absolutely does. It
Yeah.
literally downregulates the nervous system. It makes a person feel seen and safe in a way that most people simply never bother to attempt.
Yeah, we're usually too busy talking about ourselves.
Right. And the real magic, the absolute peak of this framework, happens when you stack all three of these linguistic tools I want, because, and I appreciate, into a single, vivid emotional experience.
Okay, give us an example.
For example, looking someone in the eye and saying, I want to see you again because I really appreciate the calm energy you bring to everything we talk about.
So what does this all mean? When you stack those three elements together, you completely strip away the need to perform.
You do.
You aren't trying to be the loudest person in the bar or the funniest or the most impressive. You are just being incredibly grounded in reality. It creates what the source calls a vacuum of authenticity.
Yes.
It just effortlessly pulls people in because it is so incredibly rare to hear someone speak that directly, honestly, and observantly.
You are creating an undeniable environment of emotional safety. You've shown clear intent so they don't have to guess what you want. You've provided logical evidence so they know you aren't faking it. And you've validated their deepest essence so they feel truly seen.
Which hits the limbic system perfectly.
Exactly. That plants an incredibly strong seed in their unconscious mind, permanently linking your presence to feelings of safety, deep value, and depth.
But if you're listening right now, you might be thinking exactly what I'm thinking.
Oh, I know where this is going.
If we just hand you these exact words to use tonight, like, I want because I appreciate, aren't you just acting out a new script?
Yeah.
Doesn't carefully memorizing and planning to use these three words completely defeat the whole idea of authenticity and radical honesty that we just spent 10 minutes praising?
It is a fantastic question, and it leads perfectly into the final, highly critical element of a source material,
Yeah.
the mastery of delivery.
The delivery.
Yes. These words are high-impact psychological tools, but if you use them improperly, they will backfire completely and trigger the exact opposite reaction.
Yikes.
If you drop these heavy words too early in a relationship, like 5 minutes into a first date, or if you artificially force them into every single conversation, you won't sound grounded. You'll come across as totally scripted, inauthentic, and heavily manipulative.
Like you're just pushing cheat codes into a vending machine, expecting attraction to automatically fall out.
Exactly. The goal of this framework is not to use these words on someone as a tactic. The goal is to speak them only when they are genuinely true and deeply felt. The source gives strict warnings about timing. You have to wait for the natural emotional peak of an interaction.
Like after you've shared a really genuine, prolonged laugh or, at the end of a long, meaningful conversation where you both actually felt a real connection.
Yes. Context is everything. Timing is the difference between a cheap, manipulative pickup line and a soul-level connection. You use these words to verbally anchor an emotional feeling that is already present in the room between you.
It's an anchor, not a spark.
Perfectly said.
Okay.
And beyond just timing, there is the crucial element of congruence.
Congruence, meaning your body language and your tone have to perfectly match what's actually coming out of your mouth.
Precisely. You cannot deliver a powerful grounding statement like, I want to see you again because I appreciate your calm energy,
Right.
a shaky, nervous voice, or while staring awkwardly at the floor, or while rushing through the sentence at lightning speed just to get it over with. Your nonverbal delivery must match the heavy weight of the words.
It has to carry it.
It requires a steady rhythm, warm, direct eye contact, a calm voice, and absolutely no over-explaining. If you get nervous right after you say it and immediately try to justify or walk back what you just said, the entire impact is instantly lost.
It reminds me of the source's concept of the mutual dance.
Yes, the dance.
You aren't delivering a rigid monologue at someone, you are inviting them to dance. You aren't trying to force a specific outcome or desperately chase a reaction. You just state your truth, cleanly and respectfully, and you let the connection grow or not grow completely naturally.
That is the true essence of a high-value presence.
Yeah.
You lead with intention and respect, and you allow the other person the absolute freedom to decide if they want to follow. If you express yourself honestly, and they don't match that energy, or if they respond without the same level of interest, you must respect that. You don't push for a reaction, you don't get angry, you just let it be. Ironically, truly letting go of the outcome is the very key to being unforgettable.
It's totally paradoxical, right? By not desperately trying to be remembered, by not agonizing over the perfect, logical, risk-free text message, you actually leave a lasting mark.
Exactly.
So to recap this entire deep dive for you today, Genuine attraction is not about playing complex games. It's not about crafting perfectly witty paragraphs that prove how smart or unbothered you are.
Not at all.
It is about moving away from polite background noise and stepping into radical honesty. By using clear intent with "I want," providing specific, observant evidence with "because," and validating a person's core essence with "I appreciate," you completely bypass the brain's spam filter.
You go straight to the core.
You bypass the prefrontal cortex and speak directly to the limbic system. You create an emotional high contrast mark that lingers long after the conversation ends.
You step out of the background noise and become the person whose words echo in their mind when everything else gets quiet.
So I want you to evaluate your own conversations today. Look at your recent text messages, or think about the casual chats you had at the coffee shop or the office. Are you hiding behind safe maybes and generic pleasantries?
Most of us are.
Right. Are you accidentally offloading all the emotional heavy lifting onto everyone else because you're afraid of a little rejection? Or are you daring to create a high contrast memory?
Are you willing to be clear, grounded, and undeniably present?
Exactly. And remember that phone screen we talked about at the beginning of this deep dive? The one you were staring at, backspacing, trying to find the perfect, risk-free sequence of words? The answer isn't in finding a clever combination of letters.
No.
The answer is in dropping the armor, stepping entirely out of the script and letting yourself actually be seen.
And as we wrap up, I'd like to leave you with one final, unaddressed implication to ponder on your own.
Ooh, what is it?
Well, the source material we unpack today focuses almost entirely on romantic dating and sparking physical attraction. But if you think about the underlying psychology we've discussed today,
The need for emotional safety and to be witnessed.
right, if this specific cocktail of language-clear intent, evidence-based observation, and deep appreciation creates such profound emotional safety and makes a person feel so incredibly understood, how radically could this transform our purely platonic relationships?
Wow, that's incredibly true. We often treat our closest friends and family with the most background noise of all, just assuming they know how we feel.
Exactly. What would happen if we stopped using polite, forgettable background noise with our oldest friends? What if we used this exact framework with our siblings or our parents to finally make them feel truly seen?
That's powerful.
It's definitely something to think about the next time you casually ask someone, "How was your day?"
Absolutely. Well, that is a perfect place to leave it for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next